The Poultry Association of Nigeria has come out to say that in the past 6 months, poultry businesses, about 30% of poultry businesses have closed down. And I'm joined now by the Secretary General of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, FCT chapter, Musa Hakeem. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'll just start off with the data that has been released that about 30% of poultry farms have shut down nationwide, and this is according to the association that you belong to. But I want to hear from you now. What are the main factors that have contributed to these closures?
Yeah, thank you, Chiamaka. I think the 30% of poultry farms that have been closed down in the last 6 months stated by my national president is a correct statement. Correct statement in the sense that these 30% didn't just happen this moment. There are some various, activities or events that actually responsible for this 30% of farms closed down. Like in the recently, like let me just take it from year 2000. From year 2000, we had COVID-19, and the effect or the impact of that COVID-19 on poultry production was purely negative, because as at that time we have lockdown, we couldn't, the easy of movement of those poultry products was seriously hampered, and it affects a lot of farmers there. Then most of us, even at that time, few farms were closed down that could not, really compete in that atmosphere. Then shortly after that, in 2021, we had Naira redesign. That also have a serious impact negatively, so to say, in poultry production. Then shortly after that, we have subsidy removal, which also have a serious impact negatively on poultry production. Then recently, we also have float of Nigeria currency that trigger a lot of, prices, especially the commodities that we use to, formulate the poultry feed.
Well said, Musa Hakeem. Let's go on a short break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Do stay. And you are still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And just before the break, we started a conversation on the report by the Poultry Association of Nigeria stating that about 30% of businesses have closed in the past 6 months. And I still have my guest with me, who is the Secretary General of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, FCT chapter, in the person of Musa Hakeem. Thank you again for, coming on the program today.
You're welcome.
Okay, and before the break, you had started, talking about the main factors that had driven the closures of these businesses. Can you go on with your thoughts, please?
Yes. As I was saying, all those factors that I have mentioned, that's from the COVID-19, the Naira redesign, then fuel subsidy removal, then floating of Naira. All those are factors that even outside the poultry farmers. Then the one that is directly affecting the poultry farmers is the intermittent increase in poultry feed. In fact, as a matter of fact, as I'm coming to this studio now, I just few seconds to get here, I got an alert that the feed has been increased.
So how much now?
As at yesterday, there's a particular brand we are buying 15,900 naira. That is in the case of layer mash, for those who are producing eggs. As I'm talking to you now, that particular brand has been increased to about 16,600 this morning. then this will force a lot of farmers to continue to be out of business. Then the reason being that as a subsistence farmer, because in this we have category of poultry farmers, the small, medium, big, and like that. Then before now, many of these farmers have challenges in even feeding the birds. So if you buy, maybe for instance, 10 bags of feed yesterday to feed your birds at 15,006, expecting a production at least per bird 4 bags, because we have also discovered that even the quality of the feed we are using now has been drastically reduced, despite that we are buying at these high costs.
But I'd like for us to also talk about, the cost of operation as a whole. You've touched on, the cost of feed, talking about the increase. Even though one of our commenters has said it was about 20,800, do these prices differ according to location? No,
first of all, the prices differ according to the breed.
Okay.
Yes, like that, the commenter or the commentator, what he is talking about is broiler feed. Because broiler feed is always higher than the layer feed. So I just want to be specific about layer feed.
And broiler feed.
Yes, and broiler feed.
Well
so
said.
I think broiler feed now is over 20,000 naira. Even that 20,400 naira that commentator have said might have increased at this moment we're discussing this.
Let us talk to, the cost of operations as a whole. You've talked about, the feed, but let's talk about transportation and the impact on the poultry sector. What specific costs, have increased away from the price of feed now? What else has increased in the entire value chain?
The entire value chain, we also talk about that transportation. Because for instance, even when you buy these feeds, you are going to transport it from point A to point B where they are going to be used. Even when you produce, you are going to move all these products from point A to point B to sell. So all these put additional costs aside what the farmer is feeling already. But all those costs are now going to be invariably on the consumer, because these are the costs you factor in when you are doing your cost of production before you arrive at a price. And that's why you see that the price of egg and the price of chicken, that's as poultry products, are increasing almost every day. It's as a result of all these costs that have been incurred in the process of production.
But how is the association taking it? Like we have already, stated, I understand that about 30% of businesses have closed recently. But if you also heard while I was going through the social media comments, most Nigerians are now switching over to vegetables away from poultry product. How is the association taking that development?
I think it's a very unfortunate situation that the poultry farmers found ourselves, especially this material time. I have an advice for people, because egg, for instance, it still remains the cheapest sources of protein. And an egg provides you with 9 essential amino acids that your body needs to function well. Because I used to say, even on my social media handles, that the cost of not eating the egg is more costlier than the cost of eating the egg.
Eating the egg.
Yes. So if no matter how the cost of the egg today, I urge people to still look, walk around their budget and still make sure they eat, especially the children. They need this egg as much as possible. Then back to your question, what the association is, doing about the development. Because of our production is more or less like a perishable goods, we would have find a way to drive home our demand or plight so that a lot of people can remain in business. Like other sisters association, they normally do maybe down tooling to press, home their needs, but we can't do that because a particular farmer produce today and want to sell so as to enable him get feed for tomorrow production. And it's not a goods that you can keep for sometimes while you are trying to press home your needs. So these are the peculiar situation we find ourselves. But meanwhile, our national leadership has been talking with government over time. But to me, it's as if government is not too responsive to the plight of poultry farmer. But gladly, as I heard from the news 2 days ago, that Mr. President, His Excellency Ahmed Tinubu, have created a ministry of livestock.
Livestock ministry.
I was happy with the news, but in other way around, I also have a reservation. Reservation in the sense that whenever livestock issues are being discussed at any fora, the concentration will be on cattle, sheep and goats. Maybe little attention for poultry. Perhaps maybe because the cattle rearers are cash cow in the industry. But meanwhile, this poultry production as part of the livestock supposed to have been looked into, because again, I've not seen any industry or subsector that creates employment like poultry.
So are you by any means, clamoring for a ministry of poultry development, or what exactly is it that you're trying to say?
Not in any way. What I'm trying to push across is that in the process of, establishing this Ministry of Livestock Development, already poultry is captured, but the focus should be more on poultry.
Well
because
said.
The closing down of poultry is not just only the economic aspect. It also affects security aspects, because people are losing jobs in that direction. And what happened? And these people, they are young people in the society. So this will further increase the restiveness in the society. So you are not supposed to even be looking at only closing down of the farm, the economic aspect of it. What about the security aspect of it, which is more important? So I think government should actually, be ready and be deliberate.
Well said. Especially, talking about, focus being distributed across, other sectors.
Even when doing all of this, they should also make sure that people who are in the industry that have the right data, that have the right, know the right people in the industry should be always carried along. Because I've, had cases in the past that a lot has been happening in the industry, but we only see it in the pages of newspaper.
Well said. So I will like to hear from you now. You have talked about, conversations that your association has had with the government so far, but it's yet to yield result. But let us talk about what it is that you need now. What kind of support do you believe would be most beneficial to the sector now?
I think, if you ask me, the fastest way to revive the industry is to give grants, and also make sure that these grants get to the real poultry farmers, not portfolios farmers. You understand? Because already most of these farmers have suffered a lot over about 4 years now. If you are taking it back to 2020 when COVID-19, we had COVID-19 here and lockdown. And those who are surviving in the industry today, maybe they are not just solely in the industry. They have other things doing and, taking money from there to support or to mitigate what is happening in their farms. But it's not also going to be sustainable if all these situations are not being addressed at this particular point in time.
So and grants,
yes,
you've called for, some form of monetary compensation.
Yes. Because as I even forgot to also mention, one of the factors that have also affected the poultry industry in recent times, that was around February, March. It was that excess heat waves. Many farmers lost a lot of birds that are worth millions of naira. Only in Abuja here and across the nation. And nobody come to our aid. Nobody has come to say, okay, you have lost also thing in your farm, how much it is. Okay, I'm even compensating with at least 10%. So I've been left all alone all this while. And since we don't also have that energy to press home our demand, so many people are just pulling out, willingly, going to other businesses. And it's not good for our country. Why it's not good is that this will also affect our protein intake in the country. And as they say, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. So we want a nation that is very healthy, that have access to this protein. Because as I said earlier, eggs still remain the cheapest source of protein. So if you also take a survey to know how much a kilo of beef is now, you can agree with me that egg still remain the cheapest source of protein. And at our own level, we are still trying to make sure that this egg, we keep it as affordable as possible. Because if we are to go by the prices of feed we are buying today, I think the price of egg we have currently would have been tripled. Because currently we are selling between 4,200 to 4,500 at farm gate. That's from the farm. So before they now add the logistics and other, expenses before you get to consumer.
You said 1,200. 4,200 at farm gate.
Yes, between 4,200. That's as at when feed was sold at 15,900. So now that I've just gotten the information now that the feed has been increased, so definitely it's still going to affect that price. And what we're looking at the moment is 4,500 from the farm. That's in FCT here.
And by the time it gets to the consumer, it would have gained, obviously.
Definitely. Because if you are my customer, you're coming to buy from my farm, you're definitely going to spend on transportation. Maybe by each crate, maybe you'd have incurred additional 500 naira.
So I'd like for us to be more specific. You've said that there are conversations you're having with government, but how can governments collaborate with the private sector, now specifically with the Poultry Association of Nigeria? And, are there any examples of successful collaborations you've had in the past? Because from what you stated, you're trying to have talks, but not so much results have come out of that yet. But has this always been the case? Has there been success in the past? Because we want to understand the trajectory of, this particular process, looking at it from the past till now. So how has it been in past years? Has there been success in the past? And what kind of collaborations are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I appreciate your question. But the point is that if those deliberations and discussion has been successful over time before now, we wouldn't have been where we are today. So that is a pointer to say that it has been discussion and ended at that level. But it even surprised me that when we are even having some function and events, We even invite most of the government functionaries. We don't even see them. And these are the opportunity would have had with them to table our, problems and challenges before them. Because if you said you want to come to us now to solve our problem, if you don't know what is our challenges, you won't be able to, tackle it accordingly. So these are the problems we'll be facing before now that even led to this present situation now. As I have mentioned, it's not just because there is increase in poultry feed that resulted to poultry farms, about 30% poultry farm in the nation closed down. No, there are events of, activities that led to that. And one of it is that government has never been giving us adequate attention. So even when during policy formulation and what have you, we're supposed to have been part of that so that we can tell our
members.
Yes, our members, then they can also, from the pool of ideas, we can be able to mitigate one of those things. And we don't have the capacity as an association because there are little we can do. Like, for instance, those who are into basically broiler production, like as an FCT, they're supposed to have a kind of well-equipped storage facility that when those farmers produce, they can just go there and store it over time without being pressured to sell at that time and sell at anyhow without making gain. And once you keep your bets a little longer than necessary, you'll be incurring another expenses because you have to feed them. You can't go a day without.
Can you explain what this storage facility is supposed to be like? Because I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean by a central storage facility.
Okay, like there could be, maybe if possible, maybe at area council level, there can be storage facility like code room built. So that, because it's not easy for a single farmer to build such facility, considering the power and other factors. So we can do PPP, that's public-private partnership. So there are lots that, government coming together with PAN, that collaboration can yield a lot of positive results.
Okay.
If we are deliberate.
Okay. What advice would you have for poultry farmers that are watching us now and are struggling to obviously, stay afloat? You've painted a not so beautiful picture on what it is like to own and run a successful poultry business in Nigeria. So if there is a poultry farmer who's watching and wondering, how can I stay afloat? What advice would you give to them, to remain resilient in the face of the current challenges?
I think my fellow farmers, they should understand that this will also come and go. You understand? But because it's the reality on ground, there is no way I can paint it that I want to use it to, entice people. Because I'm a practicing poultry farmer. I know how it feels. You understand? At a point, I would like, why can't I just opt out? But when I consider my position in the industry, because many people are looking up to me to come to the, practice the poultry, that's why I'm still in. You understand? So, but resilience, being it's just all about self-motivation that you just have to have as a poultry farmer to remain in business at this material time. It's quite hard time for poultry farmers. Very, very hard time.
What sort of industry or poultry industry, yes, definitely, do you wish for? Are there certain things you hope and wish, that we could see change in the short to long term, say in 5 years from now?
That's in the industry or from the part of the
From both
government?
sides at this point.
Okay. I think what I will say is that most of the infrastructures in rural areas, because most of the farms are being set up in rural areas. You can't come to a city center, for instance, close to this studio now and set up a poultry farm here. It's not done that way. So the roads, infrastructure to those farms are nothing to write home about. Then the insecurity. In fact, yesterday morning, one of the farmer called me in the morning that the previous night there were attempts by criminals to come and carry their chicken from their farm. And if not that their security overpowered them, they would have made away with their chickens. You understand? So all these are factors, and we want to see in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that the road infrastructures, then the power, because most of the farms are also, depending on self-power generation. And you know what it means to be running diesel, and those birds at times they need light continuously for especially when they are young, for 21 days, both day and night. Yes. Then if you are running diesel for 21 days and at this time you have not started getting return on investment, then you keep on spending, you'll be discouraged. So a lot needs to be fixed if government really want to reposition poultry subsector, which from the last statistics contributes about 6 to 8% to national GDP.
Well said. Well, it's good we're having conversations like this, and we do hope and believe that those at the helm of affairs are listening, to effect the changes that would make the poultry subsector thrive in Nigeria. I have been speaking with Musa Hakeem, who is the Secretary General of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, FCT chapter, and he has spoken extensively as to the challenges that poultry farmers are facing, as 30% of poultry businesses have closed down in the last 6 months. Thank you very much for the insights you've shared with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
This is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Business Daily. Join the conversation on social media and let us hear from you. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.